Hello and welcome. You're tuned to the League Up, your weekly thoroughbred preview podcast. Stephen Hunt joining me in studio here in Petone, but not Paul Moati, not here.
Yeah, where's the big fella?
Any guesses for what he might be doing on a Friday afternoon?
$1.01 golf.
Yeah, I think you're pretty safe there. I think the Breeders' Golf Tournament up there,
Okay.
Clark's Beach today.
Okay.
So he's gone up. He says he's in a working capacity, but
Turn it up.
yeah, I'm not too sure about that. But anyway, Paul not with us. Brendan Popperwell's standing by. But let's talk about last week. We got through the the meeting. PP, Steve. We got through Cup week in the end.
Yeah, a few complications on New Zealand Cup Day, on the original day of Saturday. 3 races were run and it got transferred to Monday, so a lot of complications within the TAB in terms of betting, but it all got sorted. So yeah, a little bit to play out in the future, what happens around different cases. Yeah, look, just back on the racetrack or the races itself, I think we had to wait till day 4 for arguably the best performance of the carnival, and that was Legato in the 1,000 guineas. She was just elite. Outstanding. She ran right up to betting expectation and probably a little bit more, and just breaking down the race shape, very slow early and fast late. I mean, she didn't do anything flash in terms of the overall time, but normalised for the race. It was super strong late what she produced. Look, I rated her 101.5 on my ratings, and that clearly has her superior as the best 3-year-old in the country. But I wanted to just see where she landed in terms of ratings compared to the Australian filly. So I contacted Dan O'Sullivan during the week and just see where he landed her in terms of the best 3-year-old fillies in Australia, and he clearly had her in that second bunch, just in behind In Secret, who produced a 104 and a 103.6, one of them being in the Cornwall Classic against the boys over Cup Week at Flemington. So he's got it right up there in the top 2 or 3 fillies in Australasia, just in behind In Secret, but I thought that was interesting enough. And just on where she goes next, the Kelsos have come out and said Karaka Classic could be her next assignment, which is a real cue for the club on that big meeting. And look, we'll try and bring out a futures market later on this afternoon, but not often do we bring up a futures market where we potentially have the favourite starting in the red, and that could be the case with Legato, and you've got Wild Knight, who will clearly sit in that second line, and it'll be double figures the rest. So 2 horses that stand out, but look for that market possibly later on this afternoon.
Okay, morning BP. She was pretty good, and Legato, what a performance. And Kevin Myers does it again as well. He can time him in the New Zealand Cup, can't he?
He certainly can, yeah. Good morning, lads. And look, you go back over that race for the 1,000 guineas, and boy, you had to earn your money pre-race too, didn't you? And Ken Kelso spoke about that, and just with the frustrations of what happened around at the start. And man, I mean, there are little things that you don't want to see happen to any runner in any race. If you're having a bet at Bathurst in a maiden race, and you find a horse is a little bit restless and needs to be reshod or anything like that, you start thinking, oh God, this may not be for me. But to lead into a Group 1 1,000 guineas, but it still didn't matter. It did not matter, and she just played with them in the end. You're right, Kevin Myers back-to-back, LJ. Look, we did talk about it, didn't we, last week? It just seemed like this horse was heading in the right direction with every single run that horse had last preparation. It was on the money every run, and you've got to say that Tina Komanyahi got that bang on. In my shadow, for those that were on, LJ gave a little fright at around about the 250 metre mark, and those that were on had to just get out of the couch and just give it a little urge across the line, and that all helped with LJ winning the New Zealand Cup.
It sounds like we just got a bit of vision of you off the couch here with LJ in the New Zealand Cup BP. There might have been a few. There might have been a few suggesting or sort of hoping that Legato was going to be scratched behind the barrier. Those that had backed the second, third, fourth favourites, so with no deductions still in play as well.
True, that's right, exactly right. But look, it was nice to get those races underway, run and won. Look, not in front of the big crowd that they were expecting, and look, it was so unfortunate with what's happened on Saturday. But now we roll on to a new page of races where we're really building towards that Christmas carnival racing period now. And we're not going to have that track condition we're looking for the first lot of those big races as we get towards Boxing Day and New Year's Day. But that's really that centre of attention now, and that sort of shift in momentum towards those races coming up now over the next few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. They do have some wonderful fields there at Counties. Steve will touch on the track conditions shortly, but sounds like it might be a little bit of aqua around, and they seem to save it for the weekend, sadly. BP, we'll come back to you. Maiden of the week, where did you land this week?
Look, I went to a race at Hawke's Bay. The Waipokoro races were held at Hawke's Bay on Sunday. Just like this race. I think there's something about this race. Second horse, good. Cruise Missile. Keep following Cruise Missile. Keep following fourth horse in the race. Keen as a Bean. Really got through the line nicely in the Oak Stud colours. And you could say that the horse that's won this race too is worth following, and that being Family Ties. Overall, like the race, I think there's a bit to bounce out of it. So this is the maiden from Hawke's Bay, the maiden 3-year-old over 1,300 metres. And we've gone with Family Ties with some nice efforts in behind with horses to follow.
Like it. Tidy looking action, Steve. How do the numbers stack up around Family Ties?
Yeah, very good. You'll see the splits for the first half, second half of a race. Just remembering that's based on open class, but the overall figure was a fraction above par. Look, she was set up to win that Family Ties, a third leading into that race on debut and behind Wild Knight, Mr. Mojo Rising. But look, Cruise Control, I think the crucial stage was just taking a sit on that race, probably cost her any chance of winning, even though it was a really good run for second, and BP alluded on a couple in behind that's worth following, including Asterial out of the Alexander barn. I just thought it was doing its best work late. Last 400 was the quickest in the race, and that was also making its debut. So there's a few to follow out of that particular maiden.
Okay. Pops can find them, those maidens, there's no doubt about that. Okay, guys, we're going to look at focusing on Pukekohe. 4 races from there. A very, very good meeting, Steve. But yeah, talk to us about track conditions.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, we've just had a little bit of rain in the last 24 hours. Just looking at the website, 14 millimetres of rain in the last 24 hours. So that's got the track down to a heavy 8. And there's the odd shower forecasted, not just today, but also race day, Thad. So they're probably thinking that it's going to hold to around that 8 on race day and for the majority of the afternoon. So you'll be looking at that soft/early doors in terms of heavy track conditions or form lines. So a bit of a shame, because we're getting this trend in the last few weeks. We're hitting showers on Thursday and Friday just prior to race day on a Saturday. So there's not much we can do about it, but you'd be looking for those horses a little bit of fire out of the track in terms of form.
Okay, first race we want to have a look at, race number 9 on the card. Dunstan Feeds, Auckland Thoroughbred Breeders' Stakes Group 2 for the fillies and mares over the 1,400 metres, Steve, and a pretty talented favourite here.
Yeah, best bet runner, Darcy LaBella. She's the highest rated in the field. So in terms of conditions of the race, weight for age for fillies and mares, it looks ideal. $3.20 trading currently on Friday morning. Peaked at $3.50 during the week. In front of Malt Time at $6.50. Our Alley Cat just out of turn 7 to 7.50. She is that third line with the perfect pink. Oscillator's been well traded in that middle market, 12 into 10. Le Crier at $11. Dragon Queen, Sticky Gate from Barrier 13 is now trading that price at $13. Express Princess 14, got as high as 15, just firmed back into 13. Best of the rest is LaBella Beals at 13 and Miss Cartier at 16. So, look, overall summary, Thad, early doors is number 1, Darcy LaBella, clearly the best back run, including a $3,000 bet at 3.5.
Yeah, okay. Well, before we go back to BP, what about a speed map, Steve? Because these are always important. We tend to look for the higher rated mares in these fillies and mares races, obviously, but how's the speed map look?
Yeah, look, it's an intriguing one, because you've got Express Princess there just on the collection of data. I've got her leading, but I'm just not sure, to be honest. They took a sit 7 days ago at Tauranga, and I just feel they might do the same from Barrier 1. So they'll look for that tactics, just look to get a little bit of cover around Express Princess. But on the map there, in terms of data, it's got it leading, but it's just not 100% sure around that from what I saw last Saturday. Our Alley Cat, you see there, it's drawn a Sticky Gate in Barrier 11. I think it gets across comfortably if they want to go right across to the rail and possibly lead, if they do take a sit on number 6, Express Princess. Darcy LaBella. Look, that draw could be a touch problematic, but I just think that Jonathan will look to get a little bit of cover. If it's not 2 on the 2 wide train, maybe the 3 wide train with Darcy LaBella, but I think he'll look to be a little bit more forward in midfield with a little bit of cover there. Outside that, Malt Time in the perfect pink, you see they've drawn Barrier 2 and 3. I think they'll look to use that gate the best they can and be no worse in midfield around Malt Time in the perfect pink. And then obviously the ugly mappers for Dragon Queen. You see they're drawing the outside there for number 4. I think they've got to take their medicine, have little choice to go back initially. But look, I think Cameron may look to blend into the race around about the 800 metre mark if the tempo is below even around Dragon Queen. But look, overall summary, I don't think there's a tight amount of speed. I think they'll go even tempo at best, which makes it a little bit sticky for horses that have mapped with worse in midfield.
Messy, sort of a messy looking map.
A little bit messy. Yeah. I think that's based around the possibility of Express Princess taking a sit from what they did 7 days ago.
Okay, BP, she's putting together a good horse's record here, isn't she, Darcy LaBella? 9 wins from 15 starts, and she was impressive last time out in the Breeders.
She was, and you've got to love about Darcy Labella is that she can go in any sort of track condition. So this track changing to a good 4 yesterday out to a heavy 8 is no issue for her. She can go on soft ground, she can go on heavy ground, and even if the track stayed where it was yesterday, that still wouldn't have been an issue. So she's a very adaptable mare, and she was too good for them here in the Taranaki breeders. And this was on a soft 5 condition over 1,400 metres. And look, she's just in grand form, isn't she, over the 1,400 metres, which was, I guess, that little question mark heading into this race, wasn't it, with her at this distance? But she was really just showed them a clean pair of heels. And it's going to be hard for those horses in behind her, a couple of rivals that are trying to turn around that defeat. So I think she is the obvious one to pick, and as the favourite in the race. But there is a few in here that you can start chipping away at a bigger price, maybe look at some top 4 markets, because I do think this track condition's going to eliminate a few big chances in the race and help others that maybe are in that middle market. That map's interesting, as you said there, Stephen. Look, Jodlin Gal's a horse that could push forward, is drawn low. It's one of those runners you had there in a position of possibly going forward. You wouldn't be surprised to see them being a little bit positive with her. Our Alley Cat, I love the fact that our Alley Cat's come off speed when winning. Now, we've seen this horse be forward and running from out wide. Do you think maybe, Stephen, that they want to roll the dice a touch and put her into the race from out wide, and then that might help a Dragon Queen follow that runner over if something like that was to develop from one of those wide runners?
I think if they'd drawn a gate, they would have liked to get a little bit of cover with our Alley Cat. But I think from barrier 11, they've just got to come across. And as I mentioned, it just doesn't look to be that much heat for the first 100, 200 metres underneath her. So she just may be the default leader. There may be a horse that looks to come around her and challenge for that leading position off a slow tempo mid-race. But I think from barrier 11, they've got no option but to go forward. And as I mentioned, she could just find herself being in that leading position through default. But I see what you're saying around our Alley Cat. They've looked at a little bit of cover, a little bit of smother, in particular on her first start or last start run. But it's just a muddling race on the map, I just thought. It just really is.
Who are these horses, BP, that potentially aren't going to benefit from a heavy 8, heavy 9, that we maybe not necessarily put a line through, but we might see drifting in this market?
Well, I think the Perfect Pink. I mean, this is a horse I just can't wait back on a decent track because they've scratched from last week's races out of Tauranga. It was a heavy track. Now, of course, that track improved out of sight over the 2 or 3 hours throughout the day. It started as a heavy 8 and it just ended up was working its way back, and it got back into a soft track condition. So I think she's one of those horses that I have a question mark on a testing heavy surface. She's got a really good turn of foot, and her first up run was just said back me next time to the races. But that would be my question mark now with her, with the track conditions. Look, Molt Time is a horse who can get through soft ground, has had a couple of defeats on a heavy surface. That would be the other horse I would have that little question mark on around Molt Time. I mean, you've just got to look at how she's gathered them in here and shown nice pickup on a good fourth surface. She's a really talented mare, isn't she, Molt Time? I love how she's come back this preparation. She just showed at the end of last season that she could work her way through the grades and get to a good level. Well, she's shown already that she can do that. She's picked up a stakes victory in this race in the Legacy Lodge. She just seems to be one of those mares that can get to a race like a Richhill or something like that in this campaign. And this race is certainly not beyond her. I just wonder if that the track condition will have its say around her chances. So yeah, they're the couple of horses I'm certainly concerned about. The runner I do like at a price is Jodlin Gal with the change in track conditions. If it keeps raining, now the forecast is to say that the likelihood of maybe some more rain falling. It's a heavy 8 currently. If there is more rain to fall and it keeps hanging around that 8 or 9, we know that she's a genuine wet tracker. Her run in the Tarzino wasn't that bad when beaten 6 lengths over 1,400 metres in behind Dark Destroyer. Now, I know she didn't back it up next time against Darcy Labella. She was beaten 8 lengths. That was on a better track. It was a soft 5. This is a heavy track, and that's what I like about her. I think she's a really good spec bet at a massive price at $21, and certainly a horse I want to have something on in that top 4 market.
Ooh, I like that, $21 on a wet track. Jodlin Girl, she can bob up too, there's no doubt about that. Steve, I just want to go back to Malt Time. I love that win. Beat some very talented types that day.
She's probably got as good a turn of foot in any in the race, but obviously it's a leveler when you get into a heavy track. So as BP alluded, she's probably just losing a little bit of that sprint on a genuine heavy track, which is going to be likely on Saturday. So that's one negative around her. What you saw at Te Rapa is the race shape, it really did suit her. They went out very hard to the 600. They've run home just fair the last 600, so she was able to finish over the top from that genuine speed up front. But you go back 2 starts ago at Ruakaka, and she won in a similar fashion, back, wide, and finished over the top of them. That was off a slow tempo, albeit it was 75 grade, it was an open class. But she does have that versatility where she doesn't have to have a strong tempo up front to finish over the top. She has enough speed to get herself out of trouble, put herself in a chance to be in a winning position at the top of the straight if the tempo's not suited. So she can be a bit versatile. She's got the barrier in barrier 3, but the big question mark is track conditions.
Yeah, okay, another ones we want to touch on here, Oscilleta in this market, Le Crayere and Dragon Queen, they're sort of all around that $10 or double figure quotes. Anything we need to touch on those horses?
I thought Dragon Queen is just the ugly map. They may have to chance their arm halfway through the running if tempo isn't hard up front, because she's probably mapped to be in the last third, Dragon Queen. Her best performance to date is the Westbury Classic at Ellerslie last season. Similar setup here, weight for age. This was weight for age. I think it was set weights and penalties to Westbury, but very similar in terms of 1400 for fillies and mares for Dragon Queen.
The resuming run was good, wasn't it?
It was a good run, and it was against the race shape. Again, they crawled to the 600, sprinted home, and she got beaten just less than 2 lengths. So it was a really good run first up. She had the right run in transit in terms of the map, having a nice run without covering extra ground at Matamata, but she may have to cover extra ground here. And Buddy, who's riding it?
Let's have a look. I've got it here. Dragon Queen, Cameron Lammas.
Cameron Lammas. Yeah. Cameron Lammas might just have to blend into the race a little bit earlier if that tempo's not to suit early doors. But what thing about Dragon Queen is that she does have a very good record right-handed. Her left-handed record is just fair, but her right-handed record is very, very strong, so that's one advantage around number 4.
Yeah, okay, and Oscilleta probably won't mind the easing of the track here, BP Oscilleta. I mean, it's probably let us down a few times, more times than we potentially would like, with 4 wins from 18 starts, but can certainly be competitive in a field like this, and a rain wouldn't hurt, I wouldn't have thought.
She's one of those horses I just can't catch, she's
exactly.
Heavy track, and you think, yes, this horse has buried them on a heavy track and doesn't quite get it done, and then you hop off and it wins and runs a really good race last time out on a good 4 surface too. So you're right, the track conditions brings her into the race. She was in that Malt Time race last time out in the Legacy Lodge, but yeah, I mean, we all have those horses. You're on, you're off, you're on, and you just never hit the right one. Express Princess, I was encouraged with what she did last time out. She'll like the track. She's drawn low, as we saw in the map. Likely to be forward and running. So she recently has been served by the Stallion. She's a horse who's got Australian form. I'm not talking stakes form out of Australia, but a horse that's come here to NZ for this preparation, and that was a tidy win from her, wasn't it, last time out to the races. And then you start looking around and finding other horses like La Bella Beals, who's hovering around that $13 mark. Le Crayere, a horse who was in that our Alley Cat race, been finishing into 4th position. I mean, the beauty about this race, and it's like this each and every year, is you can actually give a decent shout to every horse in the race. There's good reasons around all horses in this race, did it be track conditions or how they've run recently, that it makes it for a good betting contest. The Auckland Thoroughbred Breeders over 1,400 metres. Yeah. So look, overall, I think Darcy LaBella looks very hard to beat because she's just a consistent mare through all types of track conditions. She looks the one to beat, but look, outside of her, happy to just go searching for Jodlin Gal at a price and probably playing it an each way / top 4 ticket and want it in quaddies and all those sorts of things if you're trying to expand.
Lovely. BP's found us a little bit of value there, Jodlin Gal. Express Princess, Steve, was that the horse we had a stack for when it resumed in New Zealand at Ruakaka? Was that horse, Andrew Forsman?
Yep, that's it.
It missed the start and boomed home, didn't it?
Yeah, had a bit of a setback after Ruakaka, and I think went to Te Rapa and failed there. And I think there was early suggestion it might even make its way to the Couplands Mile. I think it was also nominated for Winter Cup throughout the winter, but just never got there. So they've had the odd setback. And look, its performance last Saturday at Tauranga, it was good enough to measure up to this race here. And I like the 7-day backup. I think it's an underrated stat for a horse that's performing on a wet track. And yeah, I just feel the way that was run last Saturday, they took a cover from a similar gate. And I think they'll look to take a little bit of cover here and hopefully get that trailing position. So, well, I've got a second pick, Express Princess, behind Darcy Labella. I thought Darcy Labella's going to be awfully hard to find. It is a slight sticky gate for Jonathan Riddell, but I think with the muddling pace, there may be a 3-wide train if he happens to be out there with a little bit of cover, but ideally be, just forward to midfield with a little bit of cover and blend into it at the top of the straight. But she has all the credentials, and we go back to these highest rated gallopers and these fillies and mares races at Weight for Age, and she sits in that with a rating of 99, so she's the horse to beat.
Yeah, and in track conditions, you don't have to worry about that, do we?
No.
Any goes on anything?
Not at all, so it's a safe bet 2-3 days out.
Yeah, okay. Darcy Lavelle, awfully hard to beat. Pops doesn't mind a bit of Jodeling Girl. And Steve does have Express Princess in his numbers as well. So an intriguing race this year's Thoroughbred Breeders. I want to go back to race number 8, guys, because this is a good race as well. The Haunui Farm Counties Bowl Group 3 over the 1,100 metres, Steve, and tight at the top of this market.
Bonnie Lass heads the market. One start this campaign is Older Mare and did the job at Ottawa Park. $3.30 from a sticky gate, but we'll touch on that shortly. In front of Babylon Berlin, $3.80, $10,000 bet at 3.8. They're now trading at 3.5. Let's Be Glam, $4.20 out to $5. That's intriguing. Just a little bit soft for a horse that resumes here in NZ. Dragon Leap, 9 into 750. Sassy Merlot, also a firmer, 9 into 8. And Sacred Satono, nice to see a 3-year-old contesting this race. 10 got as high as 12, just back into the original price of $10. And next best is That So at a $16 price. So, yeah, a little bit of moving parts in the first 36 hours of trading, Thaddeus. Big single bet on the one, Babylon Berlin, but there's firmers around Dragon Leap, Sassy Merlot, and Sacred Satono.
What did you say, 10,000?
10,000 at 3.8.
Okay, very good. Into 3.5 for Babylon Berlin. We know her quality BP, but there's quality up and down this field.
Isn't there? I mean, this is a heck of a race, but let's be honest, we shouldn't be surprised because this race is really holding up, isn't it? I mean, Levante's won it the last 2 years. Of course, the Quinella last year was Levante Rockin' Horse. Babylon Berlin ran third in that race last year. So, look, this is a good quality sprint race. And like Stephen said, having that 3-year-old in the race too just adds that little bit more to the race, doesn't it? Look, these two at the top of the book, they do have a task, don't they, with the 60 kilograms and both drawn out wide. They're certainly negatives, aren't they, against these two class horses in the race. Look, Bonnie Lass came back with a super win first up to the races, didn't she? She won at Rotorua. She had a barrier draw, sat in the trail, peeled out and got the job done and won she was ready for a big preparation, and maybe that preparation could be that Group 1 goal they're looking for with her coming up through the summer. So she's just not quite going to get the same sort of trip though, is she? That this is a race where she's drawn out, she's going to have to try and find a position as opposed to last time where she just got that beautiful soft run from barrier number 1. Really intrigued to see the money for Dragon Leap though. Look, this is a good go for him as well. My question mark with him is heavy track conditions. Look, it really is kryptonite for him, to be honest with you, wet tracks, and that worries me about him. He's a horse that loves high speed, 1,100, 1,200 metre races. That just might be his go now. That could be his go in life now, is running these type of races. But I'm just worried about track conditions for him, because every time he cops one, he doesn't strike out. He's a beautiful big striding horse on a firm track. He's really got to turn a foot, and we saw that behind Imperatriz over 1,100 metres at Ruakaka first time up. That was enough for them to say, let's go to Australia, and he competed brilliantly, I thought. The Memsey run was outstanding when he finished into 4th position. So, yeah, that's covering off the first few favourites, and Let's Be Glam as well, a horse who's got the right sort of form lines to say that she can be part of this too. I thought she was a huge chance. So, yeah, a lot of different angles.
Bonnie Lass, let's talk about Bonnie Lass, Steve, because she's sort of bomb-proof, isn't she? And she looks like she's come back in such good form. I think we've got a clip of her Swain S win, and I don't know how that race sort of stacked up on the numbers. I'm sure you'll tell me, but just on the eye, she looks to have returned in super order.
Yes, she did. You see there, it was a very good standard in terms of the 600, last 600. Class rating just a fraction below the level or on par. But look, she got the right split. She did have a very good run this day, and I think she presents best fresh, and they've kept that freshness in her. We haven't seen her for, 4 or 5 weeks since that stakes win at Ottawa Park, Bonnie Lassen. She has drawn an outside gate of barrier 11, but I think she gets that drag from Babylon Berlin, who's drawn one inside her in barrier 10. And I don't think there's a huge amount of speed, even though it's a 1100 metre dash at Pukekohe. I don't think there's a huge amount of speed underneath Bonnie Lass and also Babylon Berlin. And I've got Babylon Berlin no doubt leading. She'll come across, she'll find the paint. She's just a genuine speed demon, and she'll look to lead and really just run them into the ground over 1100 metres. She is a genuine 1100 metre specialist, which I do like to gravitate towards. But I think she's helped Bonnie Lass by Babylon Berlin drawing inside her out from a wide gate. I'm not saying Bonnie Lass has to be second outer, but I think she comfortably sits in the first 3 and running.
Yeah, okay. Well, I just want to have Sassy Merlot's the other one I wanted to have a chat to you about, because it was your bet of the day a couple of weeks ago when it got the chocolates here at a nice each-way price. How did that race stack up?
Yeah, well, this is 75 grade, but again, to the 600 last 600, that's based on open class figures, so very, very strong. They've gone out just below even tempo, but they've run home just a fraction above par, and the class rating for 75 grade was 2.7 lengths above par, overall time 110 and change. Look, she showed her talent as a 3-year-old. What she does, she puts herself in the race. Well, it was very encouraging, that performance on the eye, but backed up on the clock. Off that performance and allowing the weight adjustment, because she carried 58.5 that day at Mudda Thaddeus, she drops to 53 kgs. She just needs to replicate that figure with a weight adjustment to be right in the finish on Saturday, albeit she is stepping up in grade. So, look, her right-handed form is a slight concerning. I brought that back with a previous horse in our feature in the Fillies and Mares, but her right-handed form, she's had 3 starts, and out of those 3 starts, twice she's hung. But that was as a 3-year-old. I've got no doubt Pam and the team at Mudda would have been working this horse right-handed for this assignment leading into Saturday. But that is a slight concern. She had a few tricks as a 3-year-old, and one of them was hanging right-handed, but I'm sure they've ironed that out, and it won't be a problem come Saturday.
Yeah, okay, what about track conditions for Sassy Merlot? Okay, handle it heavy?
Yeah, wouldn't want it any worse than a heavy 8. There's not a huge amount of data to go on her trackability on a heavy 8, but all her exposed form has been on a better track, and again, she can run really good sectionals on the top of a map on a field. So, yeah, probably a slight leveler there is a slight concern. I think if you ask the connections, an ideal track condition would have been a 4 and a 5. But look, I don't totally want to knock her on a heavy 8 just purely because that light data.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Look, a couple of horses coming into this fresh BP, and I think we've got some trials. Babylon Berlin, obviously Steve thinks going forward, and Let's Be Glam as well, coming into this fresh up. Run us through this trial with Babylon Berlin. Probably not too much to talk about here. Here she is in front, I think.
Yeah, look, she's a pretty easy horse to find in the run, isn't she, with what she does. We know that she's a speed horse, and I think a couple of things come into her favour for this race tomorrow too. Is maybe that change in track conditions for her is going to help her as opposed to some of the others too. I mean, she's a very fast horse early, and we can see her covering the ground early, getting into that position like that, and that was a good hit out from her, wasn't it, Babylon Berlin? Look, things didn't go to plan in Queensland. It was just one of those preparations where they went and nothing went to plan at all. She was slow away when J-Mac was aboard, wasn't she, in her first run over there, and then after that it was really curtains, and she didn't deliver her following start. So she's come back, she's freshened up. She will be hard to beat. I just get that feeling she will be very hard to beat over a 1100 metre distance. Let's Be Glam. I do like Let's Be Glam. This is a horse's trial out of Ruakaka. Just brings rock solid Australian form, does this particular mare. She's had 10 starts for the couple of victories. Of course, she had that one race day start, which was here at Counties, and the entire world was on and dead heated. Lee Thinnis was aboard actually that day, and then it was relegated, of course. So we're relegated back to second because of the tight finish and a little bit of buffeting late. She's a good mare. I'm just a little bit concerned about maybe the track conditions for her as well, but I think purely on class, I want her in the mixture. And then we get to Sacred Satono. What do we do with Sacred Satono? A horse who, what was the 2,000 Guineas favourite? at one stage after he was able to be very good, beating home Desert Lightning, who nearly won the 2,000 guineas. He was one hop away from winning it, was Desert Lightning. He adds a lot of interest to this race, Sacred Satona, and I don't want to be completely against him. $10 his price. Thoughts, Stephen?
Yeah, hard horse, very hard horse to assess. Obviously, this is plan B. Ideally, they would have been running in a 2,000 guineas 2 weeks ago, but they've had to just refresh and start again, Sacred Satona, and I just don't know. I don't know. I think ideally his peak distance will be 1,400, 1,600, but these Satona Aladdins are showing enough turn of foot to be competitive over a shorter trip, 1,200 metres. Not ideally placed in terms of the open handicap condition of the race. Being a 3-year-old, he sits on the minimum, but he's in ratings. He's rating 69, and there's a few horses here, the likes of Let's Be Glam and Sassy Merlot, who have 10, 11 points rated higher and sit on the minimum also. So not ideally placed, but I'm not 100% sure how the 3-year-olds have gone in this race in the past, BP. I suppose we haven't had a huge amount contest this race in a few years.
I would say we hardly haven't. Yeah, I can't think of any. Just racking my brain now. Because it's a different time of the year, isn't it? For when we see 3-year-olds turning up in sprint races, we obviously see it a little bit later on in the season, and horses roll the dice when they get to races like the Telegraph and those type of events. But I can't think of one immediately anyway. But yeah, look, it's Plan B. He's just a hard one to assess. He really is.
We just settle Pop. Oh, sorry, Steve.
Well, you can measure her up. I mean, you look at its performance at Ruakaka, albeit that was over 1,300. So there's not a huge difference, but it did beat a horse called Desert Lightning, who's franked that form and run second in the 2,000 guineas. So at the time, Desert Lightning didn't have the flashing light on it. It was just progressing as a 3-year-old. But what that horse has done since running second to Sacred Satona at Ruakaka, that form's definitely been franked. So, tricky race. I don't have a clue where the SP is around Sacred Satona. But what I will say about this race, and looking forward to the races like the Railway and the Telegraph, is that the Railway obviously has run at Te Rapa this year. It's at set weights and penalties. This is at open class or open handicap conditions. So if the likes of Bonnie Lass and Babylon Berlin can do the job with their big weights, and then they drop back to set weights and penalties in the Railway, they're going to be awfully hard to beat. So you're really relying on these up-and-comers, these horses sitting on the minimum. This is their opportunity to do the job on these higher credentialed sprinters, because it's going to make it very tricky come the Railway and the conditions of the race being set weights and penalties, and also the Telegraph at weight for age.
Okay, you make a very good point, and we'll need Levante and to turn up, and Imperatriz.
Yeah, Imperatriz. I mean, they're a different
beasts.
A conversation, obviously. They're proven at Group 1, but there's an opportunity for a lot of these horses here. I don't think we have a Group 1 winner in this race, BP, but there's a nice opportunity for one of these horses on the minimum to really stamp their authority and say, right, when we get to a condition like a set weights and penalties, we're not out of it because we did the job in open class on the minimum. Yeah,
you're right. Yep. Yeah, no, this is an exciting bunch of sprinters, and when you think of what Levante and Rocking Horse, they're certainly the horses that are the line in the sand for our sprinters. This next bunch that are following makes it fairly exciting. It really does. Look, I keep changing my mind here about this race. Yesterday, when doing the form, I was around Let's Be Glam. I was really happy to be on her. Then the rain's fallen, and I'm sort of starting thinking, wow, is this race set up for a Bonnie Lass or a Babylon Berlin? I keep coming back to Babylon Berlin as probably my top selection now, but very much a mixture of Babylon Berlin, Let's Be Glam, Bonnie Lass. It's at the pointy end of the market, but that's where I'm heading at this stage around the Counties Bowl. So Babylon Berlin / Let's Be Glam.
Okay, tricky, and Pops mentions those track conditions for Let's Be Glam and Dragon Leap. Somewhat of a concern. Give it to us in one, Steve, the Counties Bowl.
Babylon Berlin, just purely on track conditions. She's a genuine 1,100 metre specialist, and I think that's important when you're assessing form. 1,100 to 1,200 might not seem a difference, but I think it is when you're really diving into the form. You just want a speed demon. I think she's got that.
Okay, very good. Okay, half-time, interlude. And you know what that means. Even though he's not here, he's contributed. He'd be telling you that as well. This week's Minute with Mawati, I believe it's Dylan Turner.
Hi, I'm Dylan Turner and I'm a professional jockey. Who's been the biggest influence in racing for you?
Have to say Alan Sharp.
The first car you owned?
Toyota Corolla.
Toilet paper, over or under?
Definitely over.
Most famous person in your phone contacts?
Holy, Andrew Lacey probably.
Your go-to karaoke song?
It has to be something to do with Luke Combs.
He's coming to New Zealand.
Yeah,
Favourite NRL team?
definitely Warriors.
Favourite junk food?
Chocolate.
Who should be All Black coach?
Probably Andrew Lacey again.
Who has it easier, jockeys or trainers?
Trainers.
Favourite board game?
Chess.
Union or league?
League.
Favourite cocktail?
Nah, I'm a Corona fan, so.
Fill in the blank. The best Barrett brother is?
Bowden.
First celebrity crush?
Selena Gomez.
Which player would you most like to see at the Warriors next season?
What's his name? The 7 for Panthers.
Cleary.
That's him.
Favourite horse you've ever ridden?
Cowie.
Favourite movie?
John Wick.
You can invite 3 people to a dinner party. Who are they?
James McDonald, Chris Waller, and Stephen Nichols.
Race you'd most like to win?
The Bone Crusher.
Horse we should be keeping an eye out for this season?
Chase.
Thank you.
Sharp as attack, Dylan Turner. Very good. Thank you, Dylan, for spending a minute with Mawadi. Andrew Lacey, famous person in your phone contact. Not too bad. Yeah, no, very good. And Nathan Cleary to the Warriors. Well, wouldn't mind seeing that. Shame we let go of Ivan. Okay, guys, we'll move it on. 2 more races we want to try and get through before we wrap it up. And I obviously want to go to the Counties Cup, the Pukekohe Traders Counties Cup. Group 3 over the 2100, Steve. Relatively short price favourite here.
Yeah, a bit of sense of timing around Self Obsession, third up over a staying distance. Track conditions, will be interesting to see BP thoughts around number 6 Self Obsession around that. But at $3 flat, it's its original price. In front of Charm Star at $6.50, shares that second line with Ballon Rouge. Victor Vegas, firmer there, $8.50 into 7.5. The Mare, 9 into 8. Z Falls, bouncing between $11 and $13. Akoya at $12, just has to require a couple of scratchings there for Akoya. Justin Mays at $18, Aromatic 18, also Rapid Falls and Osaka at an identical price, $18. So it's quite a bunch group in that middle market between that $14, $18 quote. But back to the point again, Self Obsession, a $3 price. But look, a little bit to develop in terms of turnover. It's just stifle betting. I think that's down to track conditions, Thad. But your firmers are Victor Vegas and the Mare.
Yeah, exactly. And only 14 going to the post here, BP, and we've got 20 in this market, so that can be a little bit, not off-putting, but, just to hold people back a little bit. But obviously there's no deductions applied for those emergencies coming out. What are your early thoughts here, Counties Cup?
Look, Self Obsession, I think, is the right favourite. Really has been tracking nicely, hasn't she? Her 2 runs back have been terrific. I thought her first up run on an on-speed dominated race, she got back with the Perfect Pink. Both her and the Perfect Pink were eye catchers in that race. Then she went to Melbourne Cup Day and finished into second position in the Karaka Classic over 1,500 metres, beaten by a late swooper in Sea Jets. I just think she just is in the right spot, third up, 2,100 metres. Track conditions, look, certainly a query. If it holds around 8, I'll be feeling okay, because you go back to her win as a 3-year-old filly when she won the Alice Classic. Now, that was a track condition that was rated a soft 7. Now, that was rain affected, classic sort of summer wet, if you could say, in February. But she was able to handle that and beat Glory Bound on that occasion. So happy enough that what we saw there, that she can get through this track condition for the weekend. I think one of her biggest dangers is Victor Vegas. The money has come strongly for that horse. Boy, what a run on top of the ground from this horse last time out. Just caught the eye, flashing home in the Balmerino. The Balmerino form looks to be a form reference I want to follow. She ran 4th. The Mare ran 2nd. Of course, 3rd in that race was Demonetisation. The winner's a good horse, we know that, and Defibrate, so there's a lot of good form around the Balmerino. that can really stack up. And now that that track condition's wet, I think Victor Vegas becomes a really strong prospect.
Yeah, okay. Well, interesting. I mean, the two Mark Walker runners, Steve, clashed there in the Karaka Classic over 1,500 metres. I think we've got that footage, but Self Obsession certainly building to something, with its 2 runs.
Yeah, just mapped just a little bit of worse in midfield. There you see in the blue, white and red striped silks with the blinkers coming to that middle part of the track. And you see there, and you see Sea-Jets coming right down the outside in the pink/cerise colours, and they do really stretch out in the concluding stages. And look, they've ran home really strong sectionals late, these two. 3.1 lengths above par to the last 600. Class rating above par, 130 and change. I think Sea-Jets is flying. Initially, you would have been a little bit disappointed that the Self Obsession followers and backers of the favourite got beaten, but you break down the sectionals, again, Sea-Jets has replicated that performance that she put in, an outstanding win leading into that race at Matamata from coming from the clouds, and looks very eye-catching on the eye, but she's backing up on the clock, Sea-Jets, so I don't think it's any disrespect to be beaten by her. I think she was just beaten by a horse that's in a really good space, Sea-Jets. And Self Obsession, as BP's mentioned, it just looks a really good sense of timing, third up over a staying trip. All her PBs were over 2,000 metres as a 3-year-old filly. So
what about Ballon Rouge as well? I mean, in that race, 4th, not disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, had a setback, failed at Matamata when it was right in the betting, finished 14 of 14, and they just had to just refresh her, put her a week aside, bring her back. Keep her over a shorter distance. Again, a horse that we know she won the Oaks last year, so her peak distance may be 1.25 miles, which she's hitting on Saturday. Look, she's got form around Self Obsession as a 3-year-old. They clashed at least 2 occasions as a 3-year-old, over 2,000 beyond. She won the Oaks, they Quinella the Oaks, Ballon Rouge and Self Obsession. So looking at their 3-year-old form line, there's probably not too much to separate them, but there is a disparity on Saturday in terms of price. 3 plays are close to double figures. So, look, I just feel Ballon Rouge maybe 1 race behind because of the slight setback she had at Matamata, but on ability, there's not too much separating them.
Okay, and I think we've got the race you were referring to, BP, the Balmerino Stakes there, where Victor Vegas was an eye-catcher, wasn't he?
Wasn't it? I mean, he was back on firm ground, which he doesn't like. I mean, this was... Okay, it wasn't firm ground, it was a soft 6, but it was just one of those track conditions that got a lot better throughout the day, and they were hoping that it was going to stay in that heavy bracket. So I was really taken by what he did here. And of course, you've only got to go back to what he did 2 starts ago. Victor Vegas, he was able to win on a soft 5 track condition out of Harwood when winning, it was the Cup there, wasn't it, when he won. So look, it's a good run, and Demonetization's backed it up out of that race. To win last week in the Tauranga Stakes, who finished 3rd. The winner's a good horse. Yeah, solid form lines around that race. I do like the mare too. I thought the mare, just one of those horses that can get through the track conditions. We know that he's got very good Australian form. Look, he's a former NZ horse to begin with, but look, he's one of those horses that has Australian distance form in the wet. And that's what I like about his chances for Saturday too. So I sort of see him right in the numbers. He's hovering around that $8 mark. He potentially could become a bet if he continues to hover there, and maybe the favourite gets tighter and he lengthens a touch. And then the other one we need to mention is Z Falls and that Fielding Cup reference, because there's a few that bounce out of that. Z Falls ran 2nd. Charm Star flooded home to run 3rd. There's a form reference around those 2 horses. Z Falls can get through the heavy conditions. Charm Star's yet to be seen on a wet track. Has been a winner on a soft surface, but we know her overall ability in Charm Star. So, yeah, good race, really good race. I keep coming back to Self Obsession, and if the track condition holds up around that 8 condition, I'd happy to still be on her.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Self Obsession. BP's gone with the favourite here. What are your final thoughts here? The mare was good there.
I thought it was the run of the race. I thought it was the run of the
race.
race.
They tore along in front, didn't they?
Yeah, to the 600, they've gone out really hard, 13.5 lengths above par. And the mare had to chase the speed, and he's had the audacity to hold on to 2nd. I thought the likes of Victor Vegas, he had all right to run on, with the tempo. But you look at the weights and measures, he's well off in the weights this Saturday, Victor Vegas. I think he's meeting the mare at least 2 or 3 kilograms better off. So
And the track
I can understand that line.
Track will be a bit looser or
Yeah,
more
but
to his
loose,
liking
yeah,
as well.
100% there.
Yeah.
But in terms of the race shape, Victor Vegas was entitled to hit the line stronger than most. But that's why I keep coming back to the mare who had the chase at hot speed. The Phelan horse finished way back, who set the tempo up front by about 4 or 5 lengths. So I thought it held a lot of merit, the mare. And the only concern around the mare is that it got 6 rating points out of that race, running second in the Balmerino at Weight for Age. Now, that puts him in a sticky spot when you get to these staying open class handicap races. He's now found himself with 59.5. He's half a kilogram off top weight, which is set by Just Amaze. And yeah, he's just a hard horse to place there now. He may have to revert back to Weight for Age, but yeah, I've got him as a second elect, the mare, at an $8 price. And yeah, with track conditions, there's no knock there either.
Okay. Well, who is your on-top selection then?
I've gone with Self Obsession.
Yeah, okay.
I loved her. I actually backed her last start at Pukekohe, but initially I was a little bit disappointed that she ran second. But when I go back and look at the numbers and the figures, I just got to respect a little bit more of how well Sea-Jets is going. If you look at the 2 races, I know they're at different distances, the Balmerino and obviously the 1,500 metre Self Obsession Sea-Jets race. There wasn't too much between them in terms of figures. I know one was at Weight for Age and one was open class, but I think if you're looking at those 2 races and trying to find a race which is stronger versus one or the other, they basically mirror side by side. So I don't think there's one race that you should be gravitating towards over the other and just look at it on face value. But yeah, Self Obsession on top. I've got the mare. Look, I'm worried about the weight and the 6 rating points it got out of the Balmerino, but look, if you're going to carry weight, it's ideally suited for a horse that's going to be in the first 2 or 3 in running, and I think the mare can get away with it just on a little bit of class.
Okay, very good. Last race we want to have a look at, guys. Race number 3 on the card, the Barfoot and Thompson Challenge Stakes for the 2-year-olds. Now, this will have some Karaka Million 2-year-old ramifications, Steve, I would have thought.
Yep, 100%. Luberon, $2.85. Original price $3 there. So has been well back for Lance Noble and Warren Kennedy. In front of Vila Balmero. Local for Nigel Tiley and Sam Spratt has trialled up very well. Hopefully we'll be able to see that trial visually. $4 into $3.50, no surprise of the weight of money around the debutante. Ethereal Star, nice second at Tarapa on debut. Just out of turn with the weight of money around the 3 and the 4, the 4 and the 3. 5 out to $5.50. Then you've got the Mark Walker Peer, Balance of Power $6.50, Cyclonic King at $7. And then best of the rest is Buccino, 12 out to 13 for the Richardson Norvell team, who makes its debut after an okay trial. So, yeah, a little bit to play out. Do you go on trial form versus race day form? As we know, the market tends to gravitate towards race day form, but I think there could be an exclusion here around number 3, just with the wrap around this horse, knowing that it's on debut. I think it's going to be very solid leading up to the race.
Ooh, Nigel Tiley, home track, first starter, money on, BP. Gets me very, very interested. But Luberon, very good on debut. Did all it had to do at Ruakaka. And I think we do have that footage around Luberon. It was a nice winner, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think you've said it all though, Thad, there with Nigel's horse. Let's talk about Luberon first of all. And look, race day form is the right form, is it, most of the time leading into these races, coming up against some of these first starters. And what you got to like about her is that she was able to jump and run. She jumped from barrier number 2. That's her barrier draw tomorrow. And look, she just waltzed away from them. She really did brain them in the end. Did this horse, did Luberon. And of course, not Karaka Million eligible. So this is one of the horses that will, have eyes a little bit later on in the season and heading to a race like the Matamata Breeders and those type of races, and then looking towards the Group 1 a little bit later, the 2 Group 1s. So look, it's race day form, it's hard to ignore, and boy, didn't the daughter of Embellish really put them away there at Ruakaka. Let's probably talk about Vila Balmero though, runner number 3. He's a son of Santos, and he really did impress with what he's done. And you would know that Nigel Tiley would be wanting to set his horse up for a feature race that's on their back doorstep, and this is it here on the weekend in the Barfoot and Thompson Challenge Stakes. He is eligible for the Karaka Million. Just off my top of the head, $12 I think
$12 price,
in
yep.
that market. I think somewhere around that mark, but you guys can confirm that. Good trial, and a horse who has the barrier draw. Sam Spratt aboard. She rode the horse at the trials, and there's money on. So which way do you go? Do you go with the talk horse, a local, or do you go with what you've seen and what we all know already in Luberon? That's probably the first thing around those two horses. I thought Ethereal Star was actually really nice at Te Rapa over 1,000 metres. It was a really good effort from her. I didn't mind her trial leading into that too. And then you've got Balance of Power, who does have the barrier draw of 1. Now, it's a horse who was slow away from barrier number 2 and finished into 3rd position, and behind Ulanova first up of asking. But if it can use barrier number 1, well, then that clearly becomes a chance in the race.
What do you think? What price first, Villa Balmero, Steve, and the Karaka Million?
$12 BP spot on there, $12. We included it during the week. Yeah, you just got to take note out of that stable. The dangerous Nigel Tiley on his home track. It'll jump, put itself in the race. I'm sure it's been educated well enough, and they win this race, or even if they finish in the top 2 or 3, it's probably enough cash to work out the ideal plan working back from the Karaka Million, which happens to be on the same track, BP, isn't it?
Yeah,
this
that's
time
right.
around. So
Yeah,
a lot of
you're right.
meetings
I mean,
Ellerslie are diverting between Te Rapa and
Yeah. I mean, you could run
counters, but-
3rd, couldn't you? You could run 3rd and you're on target. It's $8,000 for 3rd. So it means normally that line's 10,000, but for the last couple of years, horses have been able to get into the Karaka Million with $3,000-4,000. So that would be a good starting point, wouldn't it? You run 3rd, 8,000 in the bin. 2nd is 16,500. You're in the race, and obviously you win. You're there as well. So yeah, they're key positions for those horses trying to get into the Karaka Million.
For sure. I mean, I liked Ethereal Star. Run BP mentioned it. I don't think they were expecting too much over the 1,000, but up to 1,100 here will probably benefit Ethereal Star as well, Steve.
Yeah, looking at the pedigree out of Eleonora, she was a high-class filly/mare that got over a trip, mile and a quarter, etc. So extra ground on the pedigree page should suit the daughter by Snitzel, and the stable's flying, so there's no knock there. Ryan Elliott gets aboard, a Group 1 winning jockey in the last 7 days, so there's a lot to like about Ethereal Star, and you'd have to say it will benefit from that one assignment at Te Rapa, and it will go forward. It's clearly in the top 2 or 3 in the market. It's going to be intriguing where these SPs finish up on the day. Naturally, as I mentioned, Luberon and Ethereal Star, with that race day data behind them, the Smarties will gravitate towards that. But with Villa Balmero and everything surrounding it, just particularly around the stable and being the local, that I just don't think that will be soft. And from the weight of money, the traders downstairs will have to keep it fairly tight.
Yeah, okay, BP surmise the race. It's not often we have Tiaki, our runners, 4th and 5th favourite in a 2-year-old race, but which way are you leaning in the Challenge Stakes?
Yeah, I like Villa Balmero. I know that the horse has been set for this race, and we've been sort of waiting to see this horse line up off the back of that trial, really. So, happy to be with it. I thought other 2 trialists that were good at the trials, in Bacchino, the 6, liked the way that she stretched out. She's a daughter of Lonhro, and Chikamahito as well. A couple of good trial victories from her. They add interest to the race. Chikamahito's drawn out in barrier number 8, but overall I think it's a really tidy race. But I'll go with Villa Balmero, just with that chance of getting that $4. Well, $4 is gone. It's $3.50 now. So, interesting horse.
You've been around long enough, BP. You've seen the Nigel Tiley field. Melt won this race, I think, as well on debut. So he knows how to set them for a race, doesn't he, Nigel?
Oh, yeah. He knows. He knows what he's doing.
Exactly.
I thought he was retiring and leaving us alone here in Petone and heading to Brisbane.
Never.
Okay.
He loves getting the needle in. Well, top selection? You'd probably go for the race day for me, sure.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Luberon, but look, it's probably a race I'm just going to sit back, have a look, and then reassess the Karaka Million futures market. But it's going to be intriguing. I think there's even the horses that finish outside the top 3. BP alludes on a few horses there to making their debut, have a nice pedigree. The likes of Buccino and Chico Magito, they could be winning in short term, even if they finish 2 or 3 lengths off the top 3 here. I think it's a strong race going forward.
Okay, that's going to be exciting. We'll keep our eye on that one. Okay, team, time to wind it up for another week here on the leg up, but we don't wind it up before we've got everyone's best bets. BP, where have you landed this week?
I've gone to the Counties Cup. I've gone for Self-Obsession. I'm concerned about track conditions, and if it keeps raining, but I'm just going to lean on her class factor to get through it. She's 3rd up into a Counties Cup, which looks really ideal for her. Outstanding filly from last season. She was beaten in the Oaks by Ballon Rouge, of course, a race competitor. It competes against that horse on the weekend, but yeah, I just like where she's situated for the Counties Cup, so we'll go with her.
$3 around self-obsession. Paul's not here, but he's been kind enough, Steve, to leave us with the best bet. I think, where's he gone for this? His best bet this week?
He's got race 7, Carmen Line. This was, I think it might have been her debut win, which was really outstanding on the eye. We're probably going back close to 12 months ago. Look, she's had a few issues, lightly raced, but she looks to have come back a lot stronger. As a 4-year-old mare, it was a really good run at Te Rapa, just the race wasn't there to suit. And the track that day we're playing advantageous to on speed. So she steps up in distance to 1,400 metres. Again, a sticky gap, but naturally she has low tactical speed, so she'll get back to the last half of the field. And hopefully for Paul and all the customers who have dived in early at the $4 price, she can finish over the top of them.
Okay, $4 for Carmen Line. Due a win, no doubt. And Steve, what about you? Where'd you go?
They've gone to Alpuni, just with the query around track conditions up north. I've gone for Wagon Wheel. This is its last start performance here. You see it's still back in that mid-section, coming off heels and coming to the outside with the blinkers on. Finishes over the top of them late here. The race shape was totally against it. They absolutely crawled to the 600. Its closing sectionals was as good as anything on the day, and that was over a staying trip. So Wagon Wheel, I think it's got a lot of upside. It's finding a rating 65 over 2,200 race 8 at Alpuni, and the majority of the horses have had a lot of starts next to their name and have found their ceiling, where this horse has plenty of upside. So look, all press remains on, plenty of positives, and at the $5 price, I thought it was a bet.
Okay, $5 is it? Very nice, we'll take that. Here's the Price Boost poll. Get onto Twitter, the TAB Racing handle, and find and vote for the horse you want, the 2 horses, or sorry, vote for the horse you want to see boosted for Saturday. So the top 2 in polling will be boosted. Leave a comment under the post and go into a chance to win a $100 bonus bet. Winner will be announced on the show next week. What else have we got, team? No deductions, still going, I think, to the end of November currently. Some announcements to be made around that, I'm sure, in time. But no deductions, no surprises all spring long. And that will go to the end of November. And bonus back blitz is in play as well. And it's back to 4th. 2nd, 3rd or 4th this week. Pukekohe, Awapuni, Ballarat and Kembla Grange for this week's bonus back blitz. So get involved in races 1 to 4 at those 4 venues come Saturday afternoon. And that's it, boys. We're done. Time right on time too, Steve.
Auckland Cup futures open during the week.
Derby futures.
The Railway, the Derby, Queen Elizabeth II Cup, which was formerly known as the City of Auckland Cup, and the Auckland Cup itself in March, all open.
Okay, very good. BP, thanks for your efforts as always. Enjoy your weekend. Where are you going to be?
We'll be at Counties on Saturday with Leith Innes, so looking forward to getting there. So just reading a report now, possible thunderstorms for the Auckland region until about 6 o'clock. So make sure we pack our gumboots as well. So, oh man, fingers crossed we have a half-decent day there on Saturday.
Yeah, say no more. Yeah, take your brolly, but yeah, fingers crossed we get through unscathed. Thank you, Steve, for your efforts. And we didn't miss Paul too much, did we? So,
has he been gone?
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us once again on The Leg Up. We'll see you in 7 days' time.